We're getting bigger crowds. Well, look, for the first time, people are starting to hear this message.
Look at this place, it's packed. And we set it up a few days ago.
Donald Trump has been supporting liberal Democratic politicians for 40 years.
Remember the famous phone call? Who would you want answering your phone at 3 in the morning? She wasn't there to answer it. You're right, me. I'll be there.
We'll know where we finish when we finish.
It took Jimmy Carter to give us Ronald Reagan.
The only thing that gets those cameras to move into the audience to show how big the crowds are protesters.
We're going to pick up delegates and have momentum.
I am convinced the most long-lasting legacy of Barack Obama is going to be a new generation of leaders in the Republican Party.
The GOP candidates out today on the campaign trail head up tonight's big New York State Republican gala. What if the election were held today? How would each of the Republican candidates do against the Democratic front-runner, Secretary Hillary Clinton? Well, a brand new Fox News national poll of registered voters showing Governor Kasich as the only GOP candidate who could beat Secretary Clinton. Kasich would beat Secretary Clinton by 9 points, 49 to 40. Senator Ted Cruz would lose to Secretary Clinton by 1 point, 44 to 45. And Donald Trump would lose to Secretary Clinton by 7 points, 41 to 48. But check out this Fox poll. When registered voters were asked who has the best chance of beating Secretary Clinton, Donald Trump is the big winner. He comes out on top with 42%. Senator Ted Cruz is in second place with 24%, and Governor John Kasich in third with 20%. So what do all these numbers mean? Former senior advisor President George W. Bush, Karl Rove, goes on the record. So, Karl, explain these two polls to me. How do you reconcile them?
Well, the second question, who do you think is going to win or who has the better chance, is really sort of like who's in front. And Donald Trump has been the front runner for most of the period since last July in the Republican contest. And so I think it's just natural for people to say, well, he's in front. He therefore is likely to be the best candidate. But as you say, the other survey, which is the other parts of the survey, which I think are more important, are ones that match up head to head. I think this is now the 56th or 57th national poll since Donald Trump entered the race in June of last year. He's been ahead of Hillary Clinton in 5, tied with her in 2, and behind her in the rest of them. That's a pretty startling imbalance, showing that at least in the vast majority of these polls, he is the weakest candidate the Republicans could put up, and he is the one person who could probably guarantee that Hillary Clinton becomes the next president if he's the GOP nominee.
All right, so a two-part question. One is, do you expect him to get 1,237 votes prior to the convention? And then part two is that if he does get those votes in light of these polls and these numbers, can the Republican Party rally around with him and build him up and handle all the, heal all the wounds that people have, and so that he would fare better in November?
Let's take the first question. I thought it was interesting. Congressman Duncan Hunter, I applaud his candor. He's very candid about the meeting today at the Capitol Hill Club. And he said the Trump team thinks they're going to have 1,270 votes, basically 23 more votes than they need on the first ballot to be nominated. So the magic number that they say they think they will have is 1,270. Today, according to the Associated Press, Donald Trump has 743. That's 742 delegates who are elected to support him, plus one unbound delegate who's come out in favor of him. There are 769 delegates who are yet to be determined after this weekend. We're going to finish the Wyoming conventions on this weekend. Trump has had no presence in those. I'm assuming Ted Cruz will continue his winning streak in Wyoming and finish those off. There'll be 769 delegates to be chosen after Sunday. In order to get to 1,270, Donald Trump would need to get 68.5% of them in order to get to 1,270. So far, he's winning roughly 45% of the delegates. I think that's a high bar. Now, he'll have a great Tuesday night next week. He'll, there are 95 delegates up, 14 statewide delegates, the other 81 distributed, 3 per congressional district. If you get 50% or more statewide, you get all the statewide delegates. And then in each congressional district, if you get more than 50%, you get all 3 delegates. If 2 candidates get more than 20%, but nobody gets 50, then it's split 2 to 1. And as a result, I think on his home turf, he's going to carry, I would say, 85 to 90 of those delegates. But that still leaves him a long way from being there. He's right today. There are about 220 more delegates who are not Trump than are for Trump, and that's going to close that margin by about half, but it's going to be awful hard to get there and win 68.5% once he gets outside of his home turf.
Okay, let's assume just that he does get the 1,237, he wins on the second ballot or for whatever, but he's got this bad number against Secretary Clinton going into November. Between July and November, do you think the Republican Party and Donald Trump can whoop up the Republican Party to vote for him and get all the needed voters by November? Could he turn that around?
Yeah, well, look, you asked that question by saying, could the Republican Party unify around him and mount a campaign? The real question is, can Donald Trump unify the Republican Party? Can Donald Trump bring together the people who opposed him and unify the party and lead them as an effort into the general election? I was distressed. Wrote my column today about this. He gave a series of interviews, and one of the interviews was with Bob Woodward and Robert Costa of the Washington Post, and in there they pressed him. Bob Woodward said, you know, you've broken a lot of eggs. Don't you think it's time to stop and unite the party? And he said, I think I got 2 more eggs to break. Later on, they said to him, you know, don't you really want to have the support of these people? Do you want the support of Ted Cruz? He says, I don't want it. Well, don't you want the support of the people who opposed you? He says, I think unity is overstated. Well, look, the nominee of the Republican Party, whoever he is or she is, has to take the principal responsibility for uniting the party. They have to draw people in. What do you think Ronald Reagan did in 1980? Did he say, you know what, my principal opponent, George H.W. Bush, I don't want his support? No. He said, I want his support, and it will unify the party if we bring together its disparate wings by making him my running mate and showing that I like him and that he and I will be partners. And that's going to be tough for Trump to do if his mindset is, I don't need these people.
Karl, thank you.
You bet. Thank you.